Hello, my name is Laurie Baker, and I am a faculty member in agricultural education and communication. I have a 65% research appointment, 35% extension appointment, and much of my work is with the Center for Public Issues Education. So Dr. Lundy has invited me to speak with this class about the recent research I've led related to COVID-19 and public opinion. Specifically, we've really looked at understanding the impact of the pandemic on Americans. And I know you're learning a lot about how public opinion research works, and there's a lot of different models out there for how it works. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how the Pi Center uses this type of public opinion research to create outputs that are usable, more of an applied public opinion research than some other models out there you might learn about. So first, what is the Pi Center? Some of you may be familiar with the Pi Center and some of you may not. We have an affiliation with our department through faculty like myself and through our director, Dr. Telg, but we actually are a UF IFAS center, and it is the Center for Public Issues Education in Agriculture and Natural Resources. So that's a long title, but we often refer to ourselves and other people refer to us as the Pi Center. We conduct research and educate on how people form and act on opinions regarding complex agriculture and natural resource issues. The Pi Center encourages informed decision-making through research, education, and outreach. So that's where we really get that applied nature, that we often want to understand public opinion, we want to understand the communication of science, but we want to take that to the next step and help people use that public opinion research to make informed decisions and to create informed education and outreach components. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about our model related to public opinion. We really want to turn the research we're conducting into practice, and that starts by finding the issue to start with. So we regularly do different types of issue identification. We have an advisory board and we have an advisory council. They help us to identify issues that are happening all across agriculture and natural resources. We also regularly meet as a team and we talk about what issues we're seeing impacting our stakeholders, impacting our lives, and kind of what is out there on the horizon. So why we conducted this research related to COVID-19 is in early 2020, we were sitting around our conference table and said, hey, have you been seeing some of the things that have been coming out on social media and other platforms related to COVID-19? And some of us chuckled a little because some of those things early on were a little funny, but there was a lot of misinformation also that were embedded in some of those things that maybe were a little humorous. And we thought, gosh, this has the capacity to really impact agriculture and natural resources and science communication. Maybe this is where we should head, looking at public opinions related to COVID-19. And so we said, how will we collect this data? There are moments in time where we use different data collection methods. We may use perception analyzer dials. We may use qualitative research like focus groups or in-depth interviews. But for this purpose, we really wanted to understand across the United States how this issue is being addressed. So much of what I'll talk to you related to data collection today will be quantitative research in the form of surveys. So that's what we decided would be best to address COVID-19 perceptions. And then that next step is to really communicate the results to those who work with the public. So we almost kind of operate on a train the trainer. We work with a lot of extension agents and other communication professionals, those involved in commodity associations or other industries who take our research and interpret it and find better ways to communicate with their stakeholders based on our work. So let me shift into telling you specifically what we did related to COVID-19. So as I said, we started using predominantly survey methods, and our very first by the time we got the survey together and got IRB and all of that, it was March 13th to 15th that we did that first data collection. And that's what I call public opinion 1. And throughout, you'll kind of see this PO1 labeled there. So that was March 13th through 15th of 2020. And that was around 1,500 people across the United States, so that we would have a pretty representative sample. We sampled based on race, gender, and region. So while it is a non-probability sample, using those parameters, it gives us as much assurance as we can to do our best to reflect what the entire nation was feeling at that moment in time. We did a similar survey about the same time period with ag and natural resource leaders. That survey had 225 people in it, and it was those that were involved in ag and natural resource leader programs across the United States. So we sampled through a national organization or an international organization for those programs. And then things were changing rapidly, as you remember, likely during this time. And so in public opinion 2, we thought we should assess this again, some of those same things related to information sources and communication channels and basic understanding of the science and the disease itself. But we also wanted to understand at that point in time what people thought about social distancing, what people thought about masking, because those weren't even things when we first started that first public opinion survey. So we embedded some of those in public opinion 2. And then public opinion 3, we expanded a little bit more. Again, we asked some similar questions so we could compare those over time and see how perceptions were changing. But we also added some new questions. So that survey had more focus on food. We were seeing supply chains disrupted, and people were turning to alternative methods for purchasing food and acquiring food during that time. And then public opinion 4 was the first one that we did in 2020. Again, we repeated some of those things. We also added some cultural elements and some other things that we were realizing were also being impacted by COVID-19 and were impacting our stakeholders as well. We have a public opinion survey 5 planned, and we hope to have that out the door in September or October. So continue to follow us for more information. But the next step after we collect the research is we really want to get that out to the people. If you remember our model there that I shared. So what we've done with each round of this research is created fact sheets, key findings, graphics that are already sized for social media and can be used easily. We also do more in-depth kind of explaining on our webinars to go into the data and what it means and how to use it with your stakeholders. And then we've also created informational videos for each of these. So if you go to the Pi Center website, and I have links I'll share at the end as well, you'll be able for every one of these surveys to get a collection of this type of information. And I feel like this is what really makes the Pi Center unique, is that you have researchers like myself who help craft the research and build the questions and understand the science. And then we have wonderful staff who do a great job of helping interpret that science for more general audiences and building beautiful graphics and things like that throughout. So that's how we kind of wrap it in a pretty bow. We certainly do work on academic publications, and we're in the process. We have some in journals already. We've been to some conferences and we're doing more of that. As you can imagine, we have a lot of data associated with this, so it's taking us a while to get to that final step, but we do want to make sure we get it to people right away, that they can use it and help build campaigns around it. There have been a lot of partnerships that have come from this, working with UF Health, as well as some other organizations across the state to build some toolkits and communication based on this work. So I do want to highlight a little bit about the research so you can kind of see what we found. There's a lot more information, but because this is a communication course, I decided to focus on the communication concerns, because these are questions that we ask in all of those surveys that I mentioned previously. So why did we explore this? Well, it's certainly an important issue in society. I think some people may initially say, I'm not sure that's really ag and natural resources, but it certainly impacted ag and natural resources in a very real way and is continuing to affect how people purchase food, how people interact with each other. Ag businesses have not been immune to restrictions from COVID-19. It's also really communication rich. One of the things we regularly investigate within our department and within the PI Center is science communication and how people are understanding science. It's one of the first times in my life that we've really actively seen science unfold in the public sphere. And so people may have forgotten what the scientific process looks like. I'm sure they all learned it in grade school, but science is evolving and changing. And the more things we find out that don't work, the more likely we are to eventually find something that does work. So that's an important thing that we're hoping to be able to help people understand as they're seeing this evolve and as we ask them questions about their understanding of science. So I highlighted just one of the communication concerns right here, is a concern for not getting accurate information. And we asked that in a few ways. The Gallup opinion poll at that time was regularly asking about people's concern about getting accurate information, but they lumped together accurate information for themselves and loved ones. They didn't separate that. And we decided in our survey to separate those because we felt like they were two different audiences. So you'll notice here on this data, remember PO1 is public opinion 1, A&R 1 is ag and natural resource leaders, and then public opinion 2, public opinion 3, and public opinion 4 across the bottom. And then you'll see self in blue, so that concern for yourself not getting accurate information, concern for loved ones not getting accurate information, and concern for others not getting accurate information. And so you can see that these things did kind of evolve over time, particularly that concern for others not getting accurate information certainly grew in different populations. In the ag and natural resource leaders, that was a real concern from early on. So one of the interpretations from that is we've visited with some of the ag and natural resource groups, we've published work, we've shared information on our webinars about how they can be advocates for accurate information and how they can share that. It may feel like something that's beyond their control, but for the sake of opinion leaders in particular, it's important that they know they do have a voice out there to kind of make a difference. So one of the things that we were able to do here is kind of see over a period of time how things have changed. And on this next slide, I have the same information just displayed a little bit differently so that you can kind of see continuing over time, people were more concerned for others receiving accurate information. Loved ones tracked pretty similarly for themselves as well, or for self as well. In public opinion 4, you'll notice all of these kind of started tapering down a little bit. And we saw that with a lot of other concerns as well. Things were starting to feel a little safer at the beginning of 2021. If you remember, we were getting the vaccine, most people were able to get it in some capacity. We suspect maybe when we do public opinion 5 that there might be a lift again in some of these concerns. Met with a group just yesterday talking about how food prices are going to continue to rise, and there are still shortages of pallets and crates and those kind of things that we need to deliver food, and the increased cost in those areas is going to be passed on in increased food costs. So it will be interesting to see in the next one if those kind of tick back up. But in public opinion 4, we did start to see again at 2021 those kind of going down. I just wanted to highlight some of the outputs of this work so you can kind of see the full piece. So these were the communication concerns, one of the graphics that came out of the first one. So when we're reporting this information to the public, we typically do things like this that are very visual. They report percentages as opposed to an academic publication where we might be more likely to report some of those means and standard deviations. And you know, maybe we want to run t-tests to see if there's statistical difference between one or the other. But when we're communicating this public opinion work with the public or with more general audiences, we like to break it down and display it in a more simple way. And that typically is more frequencies and percentages like we have here. We also, again, break it down into fact sheets where we have more detailed information. But again, you'll also kind of notice that we're highlighting the most important pieces, communicating what they really need to know, and getting down to the how do I use this information? Once I know people are concerned about this, how can I communicate that with my audience in a way that makes sense and helps them understand the science associated with it? We did ask about vaccines early on before there ever was a vaccine. So in that in that early, very first survey, we asked if a vaccine were available for COVID-19, would you get it? At that point in time, 80.3% said yes, that they would get it. So that number was really high, and we felt positive about that. And I think many people in the scientific community were saying, oh, all we need is a vaccine. But when we ask those types of questions again in the last public opinion survey and public opinion 4, again, remembering kind of early 2021, we asked them if they intended to get the COVID-19 vaccine when it was available to them, knowing that many of them it was available to them at the same time. A much smaller percentage said that they would. In this case, we would need to lump together to compare with that strongly agree category with that agree category, but still much lower than that 80% that we saw when it was a hypothetical vaccine. So some things had happened since then, right? Their concern about communication related to it had changed. It had become more of a political issue. Also, it became a 2-part vaccine, and originally we thought maybe it would be a 1-part vaccine. So I think this really speaks to the need for continued measurement related to public opinion. In all topics, there's a capacity for people to change their mind or switch information sources. But because things are changing so quickly here, I think we're seeing that exacerbated, and changes are coming about all the time. So again, it's important for us to be able to measure these things over time, to be able to make recommendations that are current for how people are feeling about an issue at this moment in time. I did want to just highlight a little bit of other work that has come out of this. So we started the public opinion surveys on our own, and then a little down the road, Dr. Gilbert helped us fund some of those next ones through a UF IFAS research. And then we applied for some grants associated with it. So in this grant, we have partnered with the University of Minnesota, Kansas State University, the University of Wisconsin, and UC Davis Irvine, and another center that I'm associated with, the Center for Rural Enterprise Engagement, and of course the PI Center, to look specifically at regional food supply chains during COVID-19 and how we can help position agriculture to be more prepared for future disruptions in food supply chains. So we are interdisciplinary. We have people in ag economics, as well as people like myself in ag communication. We also have people in horticulture and people in sociology and other disciplines helping us understand not only what has happened, but how we can prepare for the future. So we've done some public opinion research with this. We've done some producer and supply chain survey research with this. And we just finished a consumer survey, really looking at how people have changed food purchasing behaviors during this time and what they're forecasting for the future related to this. So if that's something that you're interested in finding more about, you can go to our website there, ruralengagement.org/lessons from COVID-19. And we do have some fact sheets. We are kind of using the PI Center model to get some of those. We'll be launching a new website in December that will be more detailed and have more information. But we've already had 2 webinars. Those are available and recorded. And we have another one coming up in November that will focus more on the consumer research. The previous ones have focused more on the supply chain and ag surveys there. So stay tuned for that. That's kind of how we've built the public opinion research into more academic style grants to make all of the funding work together to better understand these issues, but again, to get to that applied piece where we're able to help people interpret some of these issues. And then please go to piecenter.com/COVID-19. That's where you can find all of the webinars and infographics and details about the research there. I'm also open to questions if you would like to follow up with me. My email address is here. Dr. Lundy certainly knows how to get a hold of me as well. We're still digging through this data, and if you have an interest in working on some of it or helping us write some of it up or analyzing some of it, I'd be happy to visit with you about opportunities that we have there. And if you're interested in the output, certainly go to the Pi Center website. So I've enjoyed visiting with you today. Hope you learned a little bit something about public opinion research and the way we approach it at the Pi Center. Have a great day.